Riv Yimru Amen.
Yesh me Rabam
Barak
V'olam
Meo Maya.
Maya.
Yes Barak, yes Tabak, yes Boav, yes Raman, yes Naseh. Yes Adar, yes Alev, yes Halal, Shmei Kudashah, Brechu. Liela, Minkol, Be'achasa, V'shirasa, Tush B'chasa, V'nechamasa, Damiran, B'alma, V'yimru Amen. Yehi Shlama, Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'yimru Amen.
Yeshkoach. Yeshkoach to Carl for always davening for us mincha as we enter into our Kol Nidre, our Erev Yom Kippur service. So thank you to Carl. We're going to begin, because it's still time for candle lighting, inviting Marian Garfinkel to come forward. She is now our head sage, the head of the sages, the Council for Sages, that guides our newly elected president, Bob Belech, a group of sages to help guide him as he sets policy and puts programs together and whatnot. And so Marian is the sageliest of the sages here representing them, and she'll light the candles and say the brachot as we bring in the Yom Tov, the holy day. Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'ehyanu v'kiyamanu v'yom hazman hazeh.
Amen. Amen.
And if I may read to you.
I don't know if you're talking to this.
Praised are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has taught us the way of holiness through the mitzvot and enjoined us upon us the kindling of the Yom Kippur light. Praised are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has kept us in life, sustained us, and enabled us to reach us this season.
Thank you, Marian. And Marian and the council are a very important addition to Shirat Hayam. As we grow younger demographically, we grow wiser by drawing upon our sages to help guide us. So a very wise and important decision by Bob to create this newly formed council. So with that, Shana Tova, welcome to everybody here at Shirat Hayam. Welcome back if you were here on Rosh Hashanah. Welcome to the, as I now call them, cyber Jews and the cyber pews who are watching us as we webcast. I'll talk about it more tomorrow. We're the first conservative synagogue in the world to webcast. We are only the third, I think, or fourth synagogue in the world to webcast. So maybe you heard about it, but had a lot of shut-ins, people who couldn't make it from our congregation watching us on the website. A lot of people visiting, a few thousand hits after Rosh Hashanah to see what we're doing, to listen to our message, to study Torah with us and daven with us. So an amazing, amazing phenomenon. So welcome, and especially welcome to my booby who's watching. So with that, we will begin a couple spiritual announcements. The only night of the year the Jews wear a talit is this is the only night on Kol Nidre, and we wear it because it is the Holy of Holies. We go into tonight armed with as much as we can spiritually to take us into the darkness. We shatter the darkness by lighting candles. We shatter the darkness by putting on talit to see differently, to think differently, to feel differently. We shatter the darkness with prayer. We shatter the darkness with words of Torah, all of which we will be engaging tonight. So we do wear a talit. If you don't have one, you're more than welcome to get one. You don't have to have one, but it is the only night during the year that we do wear a talit. And so we're going to continue. I'll make another announcement in a moment, but page 393, we'll begin with a reading. We have a guest reader, Lois. Page 392, I believe. How can we enter?
On this sacred night, O Lord, we have entered your house, we who are unworthy to enter.
With sojourn in your sanctuary, who may dwell upon your holy mountain.
They who walk before you in innocence and integrity, who act with perfect righteousness and speak the truth even in their hearts.
How then dare we enter your house, O Lord, knowing that our failings are so many?
We come strengthened by the assuring promise, the Lord is near to all who call upon him, to all who call upon him in truth.
O cleanse us of all self-righteousness and conceit. Teach us to speak to you in humility and in truth, and teach us, O Lord, to listen. We'll continue now on page 393 as the cantor leads us. Before we go into Kol Nidre into the Psalm 130, into the depths, right, we go as Jews, into the darkness, into the depths. Only one time a year on Yom Kippur, and we go into that place to Kalati Adonai, to call out to God, and that's what we're doing here, and that's what we formally begin now on page 393.
Mimakim karaticha Adonai, Adonai shima vekoli, tiheyena oznecha kashuvot lekol tachnunoi. Im avonot tishmareya, Adonai miyamod. כי עמך הסליחה למען תברא. קיוויתי אדוני, קיוותה נפשי, ולדברו חלתי. נפשי לאדוני, משומרים לבוקר, שומרים לבוקר. יחל ישראל אל אדוני, כי עם אדוני החסד והרבה עמו פדות. והוא יפדה את ישראל מכל עוונותיו.
Continue responsive paragraphs on page 394, forgiving. Ribbono shel olam, I hereby forgive whoever has hurt me and whoever has done me any wrong, whether deliberately or accidentally, whether by word or by deed.
May no one be punished on my account. May it be your will, O Lord my God, God of my ancestors, that I sin no more, that I not resort to my old ways, that I not anger you any more with my actions, and that I do not.
Wipe away my sins with your great compassion rather than through sickness or suffering. May these words of my mouth, these prayers that are in my heart be acceptable before you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. So in a moment we'll begin by bringing the Torahs forward. Just one kind of idea about Kol Nidre. Before we do that, somebody asked me, do I believe in a God that needs me to show up on Kol Nidre and say I'm sorry to God? And I don't believe in such a God, but I don't believe that that's what we're doing here. I believe we need to show up on Kol Nidre. We need moments of absolute truth, of absolute certainty. We need moments where we draw the line in the sand and say, it stops here for me. I will right my wrongs. I will do the work. I will show up and be a man and be a woman and be a Jew and be present. And that is what Kol Nidre is about. I don't think it's about God needing this. I think it's about we need this, and we need to believe in a God and have a God that expects us to stand up, which is exactly what we do now. We stand up as the Torahs are brought in by our past B'nai Mitzvah. They're brought in from the Ark. I believe they're being brought in from other parts of the synagogue. And they'll be brought forward, handed over Lador Vador from generation to generation, handed up to our past presidents here on the Bima.
Rachem Aleinu
continue on page 398. 398, the top of the page.
בשברו של מעלה ובשברו של מטה על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל אנו מתירים להתפלל עם העבריינים.
By the authority of the heavenly court and by the authority of this earthly court, with divine consent and with the consent of this congregation, we hereby declare permissible to pray with all of us who have lived less than perfect lives. We enter now into Kol Nidre, the idea that our words have power, the idea that was presented in Jersey Boys, if you saw Jersey Boys. The entirety of Frankie Valli's career was built on a handshake. And what a world we could live in if we could hold to our handshakes, hold to our words. And that's really what we're doing here, is taking that very seriously, the power of our word, the power of our handshakes. And when we have failed to live up to those words, to those handshakes, we now continue Kol Nidre 3 times, 3 different melodies. The middle melody is a Sephardic melody that was lost and found, and the cantor is bringing it to us today for the first time. We continue the middle of page 398.
Kol Nidre v'yesare v'acharame v'koname v'chinuye v'kidose u'shavot. Kaya
Torahs to the next set of past presidents. So we continue once again with Kol Nidre, this time a different text, the Sephardic text, so you'll listen as the cantor and the choir chant, and we'll read it as the Torahs are handed over. All vows, oaths, and promises which we made to God from last Yom Kippur to this Yom Kippur were not able to fulfill. May all such vows between ourselves and God be annulled. May they be void and have no effect. May we be absolved of them and released from them. May these vows not be considered vows, these oaths not be considered oaths, and these promises not be considered promises. Kol Nidre. Meditation, thinking of the first repetition of Kol Nidre, the times that we didn't live up to our highest integrity this past year. Haya, the second one, Hoveh, the present moments in all of our lives where we're not living to our fullest integrity. And this final one, as we look Yehiyeh, to the future, right? We think about those ways where we may stumble or falter or fail this coming year, and we ask God to be with us, to help us have a sense of a deep resolve of integrity as we continue now the third and final repetition of Kol Nidre.
Kol Nidre, Vesare, Vacharame, Vekoname, Vekinoye, Vekidose, Om Shavuot. Vedi sarna, Torahs can be returned to the ark. We remind ourselves at the bottom of 399 that what the Mishnah says, for transgressions between a human being and God, Teshuvah, repentance on Yom Kippur brings atonement. For transgressions between one human being and another, Yom Kippur brings no atonement until the injured party is reconciled. So we show up to do the work between us and God, and tonight we go home and do the work between us and our fellow human beings. We continue, page 400.
העוון הזה, כגודל חסדך וכאשר נשאת לעם הזה ממצרים ועד המה ושם נאמר ויאמר אדוני שמחתי כדבריך ויאמר אדוני שמחתי כדבריך ויאמר אדוני שמחתי כדבריך שמחתי כדבריך
We can be seated. We'll continue with the responsive reading on the left, and then we'll conclude with the Shehechianu. O God of forgiveness, on this night of atonement we come before you, haunted by memories of duties unperformed, of promptings disobeyed, of beckonings ignored. We are ashamed of sins committed with evil intent, as well as of follies committed unwittingly or even with good intentions. Humble us by showing us what we are. Exalt us with a vision of what we may yet grow to be.
Keep us ever mindful of our own penance, Father. Help us to understand your need of us.
United with you in a holy partnership, may we dedicate our lives to your law of love.
Help us to create homes filled with joy and harmony, to labor for peace among communities and nations.
On this sacred night, grant us atonement and help us to find serenity within ourselves.
Kindle within us the fires of faith, set above, courage to live the roads we pray.
We continue with the Shehechianu, just taking a moment and really appreciating all of the things that had to happen for us to be in this moment at this time. Thank God, yet another year together for a Shana Tova. The Shehechianu, page 400.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higiyanu b'zman hazeh Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higiyanu b'zman hazeh
So we're going to now continue. Ralph Kaplan makes his way to the Bima, coming out of Kol Nidre, a time of talking about integrity. I think everybody agrees with me here that there's a man of no greater integrity in this room than Ralph Kaplan, and it's my honor to call upon him to make our annual Israel Bonds appeal. If you haven't gotten his call this year for Israel Bonds, you'll get it soon enough after the Yom Tov. So many things to be tending to financially this year, and unfortunately Israel, for many of us, has fallen through the cracks. But here is Ralph to say some words, and first, real quickly, the cantor also has an
Just a
announcement.
quick little note before Ralph gets into his business. I would like to, first of all, the fact that we're webcasting now, I would like to acknowledge the talents of Jeffrey Brody. He has done a lot of writing for us, arrangements of many kinds. Two of them were the two Kol Nidres that we did, the last two Kol Nidres. He rearranged especially for the cello addition to it, and so many more other things that he's never been thanked for. The Yihul Ratzon, which we'll hear later on, plus the great Aleinu in the mornings. Those are super compositions, and we thank you for that. Ralph? Oh, yes. Yes.
Would you please rise and follow the cantor in Hatikvah?
Please rise.
For Hatikvah.
Rabbi Halevi, Cantor Berkovitz, President Belich, Board of Directors, fellow congregants. Thank you once again for allowing me to make an appeal for Israel bonds. We just sang the Jewish national anthem, Hatikvah. It is always thrilling and inspirational to know that after 2,000 years, the Jewish people have a nation and a national anthem. 1,146 years ago, on a hill in Jerusalem, Roman soldiers burned the remains of our second temple. By so doing, they believed they had put an end to Jewish history and legacy. Nothing could have been further from the truth. We have persevered, and today we continue to stand tall, a proud people who finally have a Jewish homeland, Israel, now 61 years old. Why did we survive and flourish? Because Jews help one another. All Jews are family, no matter where they live in the world. Just as a reminder, currently there are approximately 15 million Jews worldwide, of which 41% of them now reside in Israel. We are only 0.02% of the world population. Let us never forget that Hitler annihilated an entire generation of Eastern European Jews. How much stronger could we have been if these people had lived? Friends, this may be the most crucial year in Israel's 61st year of existence. Everything is riding on peace. Israel has given up land. Thousands of people have been displaced. They need new homes, new jobs, new schools, new synagogues, and much, much more. The costs are staggering. The economy must grow in order to pay for all of this. Israel needs help from Jews and non-Jews from all over the world. This is where we come in. We can help our Jewish brothers and sisters in Israel. Israel bonds are not a donation, but an investment. Since 1951, Israel bonds investments have been the most dependable source of funding for commerce, infrastructure, and employment. $26 billion has been invested since that time. In response, Israel has repaid $21 billion to investors and never a day late. Half of Israel's foreign debt comes from Israel bonds. Although we are already connected to Israel by millenniums of history, tradition, and heritage, it is through our bond investments that we attach our hearts, connect our souls, and link the events of our lives with our homeland. We must protect against terrorism and take care of its victims. We must stand up to critics in the Arab world, in Europe, and at the United Nations. Anti-Semitism is still rampant. We must ensure our own government's continuing financial support of Israel by demonstrating our own financial support of Israel. The theme of this year's High Holiday campaign, a bond of solidarity, a promise for the future, draws attention to the opportunity of all Jews to support and protect Israel's destiny, a destiny synonymous with our own. Friends, you are committed Jews. You know the need. I cannot impress upon you again how much Israel needs your support at this most important time in our history. $1 billion must be raised by December 31st to go into her budget. This is easy. Bonds can be purchased from your pension funds, your IRAs, 401k plans, savings accounts, personal accounts, and many other ways. If you have any questions, the bond office in Boston is open daily. The need is urgent. The need is now. There are no rates on the pledge form because they vary slightly every few weeks. But let me assure you they are competitive. This is simple and direct. You invest, you get back your money plus interest. We should have 100% participation at whatever level you are comfortable with. Invest for yourself, your children, and your grandchildren. Stand up now and link your future and the future of your loved ones with the growth and development of Israel. Count the blessings God has given you. your children, grandchildren, and friends. Count the simchas to come in the new year, the B'nai and B'no mitzvah, the weddings, the anniversaries, and graduations, the brisses and baby namings. Many of you have been to Israel. Those who visit say how proud they are to see our homeland and what it has achieved. Let this Yom Kippur, the beginning of a new year, remind us of our heritage, who we are and what we are. For 61 years, we have watched miracles in Israel unfold. We have witnessed the rebirth and building of a nation. Israel has been compelled to defend herself against a sea of aggressors who only want to destroy her. Yet Israel only wants to have the liberties and freedom of a free and sovereign state and live at peace with its neighbors. Our Israel bonds are like pennants flying in the sky, giving testimony to the fact that we are one people, one family, brothers and sisters who are committed to each other's success and survival. Friends, this has been a very controversial and tumultuous year. Every year we strive for 100% participation in terms of bond investment. Let us try to come close to 100% in our temple. You will have done your part as a lover of Israel and your fellow Jews. As we reflect on the high holidays, I am reminded of what Hillel, the famous religious leader, said, quote, "If I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am not for myself, who am I?" Hillel's wisdom reminds us that we're all part of a larger community with responsibility for one another. Please join me in supporting Israel. It is the right and righteous thing to do. Before I conclude, I am proud to announce that one of our esteemed congregants, Arthur Goldberg, has been appointed to be the Greater Boston Israel Bond Campaign Chairman. We wish him well. Friends, the ushers will come along and pick up your tab cards. I understand that some of the tab cards may have been at the front desk. I would urge you, please, on Tuesday, if you don't have a card, call the temple office. They have blanks. You know the story. You know the need. Thank you for what you've done in the past. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Ralph, as always, Yasher Koach. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's an honor to have Ralph as part of our congregation, known throughout Greater Boston and beyond for his efforts for Israel and Israel bonds. The cards are available. I know a lot of people just didn't know that. So you'll get cards. You'll feel free to get your cards after services. We'll continue now with our Mariv service as we begin with the reading on page 403. We'll continue in a moment with the guest reader, Every Word for the Sake of Heaven. As Amy leads us responsively.
Please read responsively. Sovereign of the universe, God of mercy and compassion, may it be your will this day and every day that I guard my mouth and my tongue from stumbling into sinful speech.
Keep me from the sin and gossip. As the Torah says, you shall not carry a false report.
Keep me also from the sin of talebearing, as the Torah says. You shall not go about as a talebearer among your people.
May I be careful never to speak against a single person, and surely never to speak against the house of Israel.
Keep me from the grievous sin of speaking against the ways of the Holy One, who is blessed.
Keep me from speaking falsehood, as the Torah says. From every false matter, keep far away.
Keep me from flattery, frivolity, and deception, from humiliating another human being with words.
May my words be free from pride. May they never be spoken in anger.
May every word I speak and every deed I perform be uttered and done for the sake of heaven. Thank you.
We continue now On page 408 is our ark will be opened and we will rise. Please rise.
Baruch Adonai Avarach Leolam Eved.
The ark is closed. We can be seated. We continue in the middle of page 408. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Yom umevilla umavadir ben yom uvella Adonai tzvot shemo el chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Amariv Aravim.
Continue as we join with the cantor, page 410, Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu b'shachveinu uvkumenu nasiya b'chukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו, ובהם נגן יומם ולילה. ועבדך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני. ברוך שמו אוהב עמו ישראל.
Continue page 412 with the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Gevol Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך ובדרך ושוכבך ובתומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפו בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזו ביתך ובשעריך.
Continue until 416 quietly. Vayim Shemot.
Adonai Elohechem emet.
Continue silently, or you can join me, page 419, responsively. True and certain it is that there is one God, and there is none like God.
It is God who redeemed us from the might of tyrants and delivered us from slavery to freedom.
Great are the things that Adonai has done. God's wonders are without number.
He brought forth Israel from Egyptian bondage. He has been our hope in every generation.
May he continue his protecting care over Israel and guard all his children from disaster.
When the children of Israel beheld your might, they gave thanks to you and praised your name.
They accepted God's sovereignty willingly and sang in joyous thanksgiving.
Moses and the children of Israel proclaimed in great exultation.
Who is like you, Adonai, among the mighty? Who is like you, God, glorious in holiness, revered in praises, doing wonders?
When you rescued Israel at the sea, your children felt out your power.
This is my God, they exclaimed and said, Adonai shall reign forever and ever.
As you delivered Israel from a mightier power, so may you redeem all your children from oppression.
Praised are you, Adonai Eloheinu, Redeemer of Israel.
ומלכותו ברצו קיבלו עליהם משה ובני ישראל לך נשירה ושמחה רבה ואמרו חולם מי כמוך אלוהים אדוני מי כמוך נגע בקודש נורתי זאת מלכותך וסכרו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה זה עליונו ואמרו אדוני עמו לעולם ועד ונאמר כיפדו אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מי חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני ברוך שמו גאל ישראל
We'll continue again responsibly, page 421. Help us, O God, to lie down in peace and awaken us to life on the morrow.
May we always be guided by your good counsel and thus find shelter in your tent of peace.
Shield us, we pray, against our foes, against plague, destruction, and sorrow.
Strengthen us against the evil forces which abound on every side.
May we always sense your care, for you are our merciful King.
Guard us always and everywhere. Bless us with life and peace.
Praise to you, O God of peace, whose love is always with us.
Who shelters your people Israel and protects Jerusalem in love.
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ברוך אתה אדוני ברוך שמו הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Bottom of the page, for on this day atonement shall be made for you to cleanse you of all your sins shall you be clean before Adonai.
Adonai ויקדל ויקדש מרבו. בעמוד יברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ויומכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלו וזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבם מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתבהר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשו לילה ולילה מן כל ברכתו ושירתו תושבחתו ונחמתו דאמירם בעלמה ואמרו
Continue now as we enter into the Amidah, the standing prayer. This is an opportunity just to stand up, to stand tall, to articulate our truth. You can use the words of the page. You can be like the Baal Shem Tov, as I shared on Erev Rosh Hashanah, the great master of Jewish mysticism, who would take one word and just kind of meditate upon the word and reflect upon the word. You can compose the words of your heart. You can join us as we chant the words at the top of page 424, Adonai Sifatai, that were composed by, the words weren't composed by, but the tune was composed by Craig Taubman, who was listening to his heart one day, and he just heard the rhythm of the beat, and he used that as an entry point into this conversation with the divine. So however you find your way, just find your way. Page 424 as we all rise and join together. Adonai Ya la 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 Zatai Tiftach La 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 Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha La 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 Adonai Ya la 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 Zatai Tiftach La 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 Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha La 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 Adonai Ya la 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 Zatai Nivnai La 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 Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Please take as much time as you would like. You can be seated when you're finished. you're still davening, please take as much time as you would like. We'll continue on page 440 towards the bottom of the page, 3 lines up from the bottom. Page 445, as Melissa leads us, an invitation to God.
The focus of prayer is not the self. Prayer comes to pass in a complete turning of the heart towards God, towards his goodness and power. It is the momentary disregard of our personal concerns, the absence of self-centered thoughts, which constitutes the art of prayer. Feelings become prayer in the moment in which we forget ourselves and become aware of God. Prayer is an invitation to God to intervene in our lives, to let his will prevail in our affairs. It is the opening of a window to him in our will, an effort to make him the Lord of our soul.
We'll continue now as Shep and Judy come forward to open the ark for us as we rise. We'll continue on page 446, Ya'aleh.
Ya'aleh tachtanunenu me'erev ve'yavo shavatenu miboker
work is closed, we can be seated, and we listen to the words of my teacher, Zichrono Livracha, Alan Liu, who writes, "We only have one soul. Why do we waste it on hatred? Why do we find it so difficult to forgive? What are we thinking? Who will live and who will die? None of us knows what will happen this year. Most of us will live, but some of us, in fact, will die. And it might be me or it might be you, but whether we live or die, we only have one soul to do with, one precious soul to inhabit for our brief moment on this mortal coil. Why have we chosen to torment this soul, to fill it with anger and hatred, to hold on to the hot coal of self-righteousness with all of our might, in the foolish hope that it may someday hurt the person we imagine to be our enemy, while all the while it's only hurting us, while all the while it is our own soul, the one soul we have that is writhing in torment? What have we been thinking of?" We continue now on page 450. We'll continue English with the Hebrew refrain. Page 451, we'll begin. "As clay in the hand of the potter who thickens or thins it at will, so are we in your hand, O God of love."
Labrit, labrit, habet, labrit, labrit, habet, labrit, labrit, habet, ve'atefen la yetzer.
As stone in the hand of the mason who preserves or breaks it at will, so are we in your hand, O God of life.
Labrit, labrit, habet, labrit, labrit, habet, labrit, labrit, habet, ve'atefen la yetzer.
As iron in the hand of the craftsman who forges or rejects it at will, so are we in your hand, O God who saves.
Labrit, labrit, habet, labrit, labrit, habet, labrit, labrit, habet, ve'atefen la yetzer.
As glass in the hand of the blower who shapes or melts it at will, so are we in your hand, O gracious God.
We call your covenant and forgive our sin.
Labrit, labrit, habet, labrit, labrit, habet, labrit, labrit, habet, ve'atefen la yetzer.
As cloth in the hand of the draper who drapes or twists it at will, so are we in your hand, O righteous God.
We call your covenant and forgive our sins.
Labrit, labrit, habet, labrit, labrit, habet, labrit, labrit, habet, ve'atefen la yetzer.
As silver in the hand of the smelter who alloys or refines it at will, so are we in your hand, O healing God.
We call your covenant to forgive our sins.
Labrit, labrit, habet, labrit, labrit, habet, labrit, labrit, habet, ve'atefen la yetzer.
We continue on page 450. 454. Please rise.
El Melech Yoshev al Kisei Rachamim. El Melech Yoshev al Kisei Rachamim. Mitnaheg b'chasidut mohel avonot amo. Mitnaheg b'chasidut mohel avonot amo. Ma'avir rishon rishon.
Ma'avir rishon rishon. Marbe megillah lechatayim. Uslicha
Bano Hayom Brit 13 כמו שהודעת מקדם
כמו שהודעת לנו מקדם
וירד ויקרא בשם אדוני ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא אדוני אדוני אל רחום וחנון ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת חסד לאלפים נושא עבוד ופשע וחטא ונקל.
And we can be seated. We will pause for a few moments. This is a traditional spot to pause and to share some thoughts of Torah. I did take my tallis off. I know that troubles some, but I'm a little bit of a wild speaker, and it just flies and it's distracting. It flies off me, so I'll take it off and I'll put it back on. But at any rate, more importantly, we're going to open our hearts before we open our minds. So you know the routine. Here we go. Kiva Moed, the time is here, and that's the song we sing on the High Holy Days. Kiva Moed, Eva Moed, Eva Moed, Eva Moed, Eva Moed. One more time. Yalla la la, yalla la 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 la, hey la la la, yalla la yalla la, hey la 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 la, hey la yalla la la la, yalla la yalla la, yalla la yalla 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 la, Eva Moed, Eva Moed, Eva Moed, Eva Moed, Shalom. So we'll have more time to do Nigunim tomorrow, but for now I want to share some thoughts. As a speaker right about now is when I could just use a cup of water, but that's out of the question. So you'll bear with my voice. It's kind of cracking up a little bit. But anyways, this past year, that's where I want to begin. That's where I want to begin the journey into these holy days over tonight and tomorrow, and really examining a very challenged, troubled year, but in many ways a transformational year. And it was a transformational year for many of us, for me in particular, and I'll tell you why. I've always struggled with my name. I changed my name. It didn't feel right to be in Israel as anything other than my Hebrew name, so plus I was just tired of Israelis butchering Jason. It was Jason, it was Jason, I became French overnight. So I went with Baruch. That's my Hebrew name. And in Israel, no problem, a given. Baruch is very easy. But then you move back to Iowa. It's not so easy to be a Baruch in Iowa. And I always kind of gauged it with the Starbucks test. I always work Starbucks, and I get no kickbacks from them, but I just somehow have come to work that in every high holiday sermon. And so I'm at Starbucks in Iowa, and I do the Starbucks test. I say I want my double tall soy latte, half calf, afternoon. Anybody who brings me one? And they, by the way, they never laugh at me. You all laugh at me when I tell you my drink. They never laugh at me, but they do kind of look at me a little bit strangely when they say, "What's your name?" And I said, Baruch, and they're not going to try and say that, so they just kind of nod and smile in their nice Iowan way. And then they say my name over the counter. Will Baruch please come get his double tall soy latte? And my skin crawls, and I think, you know what? I'm going to Massachusetts, and I'm changing my name again. And from Baruch, I went to B. I thought, you know what? That's pretty easy. So I show up, the Vinnon Square Starbucks. I say, I want my double tall soy latte. They say, what's your name? I say, B. They say, Buzz Buzz? I say, no, not A, not C. Okay, so we have a nice relationship going for a while until President Barack Obama. And I thought, here's my moment. I'm making my move. Barak, I mean, it's not the same, but it's pretty close. So I go in a few months ago, and I say, I'd like my double tall soy latte. They say, what's your name? I say, Barack. What? Like the president. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, isn't it? I'm thinking to myself. So we had a nice relationship for a while, and it went on like this, and until the following happened. So I want my double tall soy latte. What's your name? Barack. What? Like the president? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, isn't it? Until they called out my name and they said, will Borat please come get his cup of coffee? Borat I cannot live with. I am back to B, Buzz Buzz. But seriously, that was my year of transformation back to where I started, I guess, when I came here, Rabbi B. Seriously, that name means a lot. Not talking politics, Eddie. I'm not talking politics to anybody else today, but I am talking about November 4th because it was an important day. The man wrote in on an important message, universal message. Let's just be frank about it. Yes, we can, which is tomorrow's conversation. But right now I want to talk about the idea of a messenger because I think it was revived for a lot of people in this country on November 4th. November 5th and beyond, another conversation for another day, but I am here to help all of us frame moments in time and see them for what they are. And I do believe, bipartisan speaking, November 4th was a very important day. Not because of the outcome, but because of the reminder of the power of one individual to captivate a certain large proportion of this country, the power of one individual to at least bring in words ideas of hope and possibility and inspiration during times of darkness and challenge and degradation. And that's what I saw on November 4th. Again, what happened the next day and since then is another conversation, maybe for another time. Keeping it bipartisan, though, I want to remind us, one of the most beautiful ideas I've ever heard by Jack Kemp, who says the power of one man or one woman doing the right thing for the right reason at the right time is the greatest influence in our society. And for at least a moment in time, for a snapshot, at least I, and I think many others, kind of understood the words of Jack Kemp, understood the sentiments of the idea of bringing hope to a people, to a country, to a community that desperately needs hope. My friends, this is the message of Judaism. It is the message of the Torah, and it is the message of these high holy days. I want to talk about the messenger, leaving Barack Obama aside now. Moving back to messengers in our Torah. We're going to look at a couple great messengers, but first, let's look at some failed messengers. Let's look at the beginning. How about Adam? This man was not the first Jew. A lot of people think he was a Jew. He wasn't. He was every man. Eve was every woman. He was actually passed over for the job. Why? Because in this moment when he ate from the tree and when Eve ate from the tree, right, we Jews don't believe in original sin. Much of our tradition has no problem with the eating of it. It's what happened after dinner. What happened to Adam and Eve? God comes calling, and God says to them one word, which I believe God says to each and every one of us when we stumble and when we falter and when we fail. And what was that one word? Ayeka. Where are you now that you've done what you've done? And it was Adam's response or lack thereof that he gets passed over for the job. He said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself. Adam is not chosen as a Jew, the first Jew, because when push comes to shove and he's in trouble, he turns against his wife, saying, she made me do it, and she turns against the snake. He made me do it, and the whole enterprise collapses because this man and this woman could not stand up and answer that one word, that one call, Ayeka, where are you? And then there's his son Cain. Doesn't, frankly, fare that much better than dad. Cain actually, in many ways, is much worse, killing his brother Abel, as I'm sure we remember. And yet God isn't quite as troubled by the killing as, once again, the response to the question. God says to Cain the following, where is your brother Abel? And remember what Cain's response is, Vayomer lo yadati, hashomer achi anochi? I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? And you can almost hear behind the text God saying, yes, indeed, that's exactly what you are, and that's exactly why you're getting passed over for the job of first Jew as well. So Cain is out of the running. And then third, there's Noah, and the story of Noah probably needs no introduction. Here was a man who was told, God tells him, I'm going to destroy the entire world. Build me a boat. And what's Noah's response, right? Aye, aye, Captain. How big do you want it? Basically, that's the rest of the text. This man says nothing to anybody else. He doesn't say anything to his wife or his children. He certainly doesn't go out of his way to save his neighbors and his fellow human beings. Noah, in his silence, misses the call, Ayeka, where are you? Noah is passed over for the job as the first Jew. Adam hides. Cain runs away. Noah is silent. These men are failures, not because they stumble or falter or fail. These men are failures because they fail to stand up and heed the call, Ayeka, where are you? And they certainly don't answer in the way a Jew is supposed to answer. But we don't end there. We have great men and women in our Torah to turn to, men and women like Abraham. Remember, Abraham gets a similar call. God says, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And what's Abraham's response? God, you can't do this. It's not right. What if there are 50 righteous people or 40 or 30? And he argues all the way down to 0. In fact, there weren't seemingly any. But God isn't upset by the fact that Abraham stands up and speaks out. In many ways, you can feel in the text the felling God. God saying, all right, good for you. Finally, we have a contender. Because what you need to be a Jew is you need a little azut dekucha, spiritual audacity, or as Reb Shlomo Karabach says, you need a little holy chutzpah. And it takes a lot of holy chutzpah to stand up to the Creator herself. So Abraham stands up and argues, and it is because of that, one of the reasons that he's chosen as our patriarch, as the first Jew, and Sarah the first Jew as well. And then there's Joseph. Remember Joseph, a young man who's betrayed by his brothers. He's arrogant, and he asks for it to some degree, but certainly not the betrayal that he got. He's sold off to slavery, and then he rises up, and he becomes a great man, but we're honestly not sure just how great this Joseph is, because there's a reunion, unbeknownst to the brothers, decades later, where brothers are standing looking at each other. Joseph knows who they are, but they don't know who Joseph is, and their fate, their destiny is in his hands. And you can feel this man wavering, wanting retribution, a little bit of payback. And in this moment, he has a call. He hears the call, Ayeka, where are you, Joseph? And he says the following, Ani Yosef Achechem, I am Joseph, your brother. And he comes out and he saves them. And in this moment, Joseph becomes a great man. But perhaps nobody is finer than Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher. Moses embodies the message of a Jew because of one word, one response. Remember the burning bush. The rabbis ask a great question. How many people walked past that bush before they paid attention, or more at a deeper level, before they allowed themselves to hear the call? As God says to Moses, 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 we can now read it as Ayeka. Where are you now that your brothers and sisters, the Israelites, are suffering under the weight, the burden of Pharaoh and his wrath? Moses could have walked on by. He could have been just fine on his own. He was not considered an Israelite at this point. But he has a different response. He has the definitive Jewish response. Not a paragraph, not a sentence, but one word. What was that response? He says to God, Hineni, here I am. God says, Ayeka, where are you? And Moses' response is not to run. It's not to hide. It's not to blame. It's not to distance. It's to say, I am here, because that's what great men and women do. They stand up when the call is called, and they say, Hineni, here I am, ready to serve. Judaism, hopefully religion, but certainly Judaism, is boiled down to this one idea. We are being called, Ayeka, all day, every day. Where are you? Where am I? The question is, for us tonight, how do we respond? Judaism is not a birthright. I reject that. It's not a cultural expression. Judaism is simply put our response to this call. And there have been great men and women in history, Jewish, semi-Jewish, not Jewish, men like Martin Luther King Jr. and JFK and Churchill and Lincoln and King David and Mother Teresa. We know the list because they're great. But why are they great? Because these are men and women. When family came calling, they said Hineni. When friends came calling, they said Hineni. When community came calling, they said Hineni. When nation came calling, they said Hineni. When God came calling, they stood up, they spoke out, and they said Hineni, here I am. From different races and different creeds and different religions, that is what's unifying among all Gedolim, all great men and women, and past and present, and I imagine in the future too. Albert Einstein actually says it best. And Albert Einstein was obviously an accomplished man, and yet he says, strange is our situation here on earth. Each of us comes for a short visit, not knowing why, yet sometimes seeming to devise a purpose. From the standpoint of daily life, however, there's one thing we know, that man is here for the sake of men, women are here for the sake of women, human beings are here for the sake of other human beings. We are here for one reason and one reason alone. We are here for a short period of time to serve and to become a Hineni man or a Hineni woman. If you were to ask me what that meant when I was 18 years old, I would have pointed to you, what is greatness, right? What does it mean to be a stand-up person? I would have pointed to my walls that were covered with sporting figures or maybe a t-shirt of a rock band. As I grew, I got past ideas of money and power and fame, meeting too many people with money and power and fame that didn't speak Hineni by the way they lived. I started to hear the words of Charles Schulz, the author of Peanuts, the creator of Charlie Brown and Snoopy. He asked the following questions. This is beautiful. Name the 5 wealthiest people in the world. Can you do it? Name the last 5 Heisman Trophy winners. That's football for some of you. Name the last 5 winners of Miss America beauty pageant. Name the last 10 people who've named the Nobel Peace Prize. Name the last half dozen Academy Award winners for Best Actress. Name the last decade's worth of World Series winners. Though maybe some of you can do that last one, not a single person here can name all of those individuals. And Schultz says, the point is none of us remember the headliners of yesterday. These are no second-rate achievers. They are the best in their fields. But the applause dies, the awards tarnish, achievements are forgotten, accolades and certificates are buried with them. And yet, here's another quiz. See how you do. List a few teachers who aided you on your journey through school. Name 3 friends who helped you through a difficult time. Name 5 people who have taught you something worthwhile. Think of a few people who have made you feel appreciated and special. Think of 5 people you enjoy spending time with. The lesson, the people who make a difference in your life are not the ones with the most credentials or the most money or the most awards. They are the ones that care. I would add, these are your Hineni men, these are your Hineni women, and they are real. let me share with you one of my Hineni women in my life. She never knew it, and I don't even know what happened to her. I hope she's alive and well. But in 5th grade, she was my teacher, and her name was Mrs. Pant. Mrs. Pant put me in charge of safety patrol. Now, you have to understand, this was from the underachiever, the class clown. I didn't work that hard. I didn't see myself as a good student, and other teachers didn't see me as such. And yet Mrs. Pant saw something in me and gave me my first taste of responsibility after I abused power and sent my arch enemy, Jeff Perry, to the outermost distances of Omaha, Nebraska to stand patrol. After I learned from that mistake, Mrs. Pant brought that in, harnessed that in, that energy, and I believe I owe a tremendous amount to this woman who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Think back to this past year or to your journey through school. Who was your Mrs. Pant? Who was your Hineni man? Your Hineni woman? Somebody who saw you as Moshe. Moses means to draw forth. He was draw forth from the waters by great women in his lives. Who were the great men and women who drew forth something within you? Take a moment and think about that. Think about fellow travelers along the way. Maybe it was a colleague who, when you were struggling, they asked you how you were doing, and they actually took a moment to care, to listen to your response. Maybe you were suffering, and a friend saw you and was there for you, and was there on not the 7th day of Shiva, but the 8th day when it was over, when everybody else went home. Think back on a colleague or a friend or an acquaintance who showed up in your life to be a Hineni type of a presence. Maybe it was a stranger. I believe that strangers come into our lives at the right time, the right reason, the right purpose, sent to us as a malach, as an angel. Maybe they're human, flesh and blood, but they are there saying what needs to be said and doing what needs to be done. Let me tell you about the girl in the cafe. See, I didn't fully believe this until my father died, took his life almost 3 years ago. A woman shows up at his memorial service about a month later. She stops everything, and there's about 100 of us or so, and she says, "You don't know me, and I don't know you, but I knew Shelley, my dad." Shelley would come into my cafe almost every day, and he would write. Shelley was the only one who would stop and ask me how I was doing, and Shelley didn't even know that I, ironically, speaking as her, was suffering from depression and was suicidal herself. And one day my father sat with her and talked her out of it. They didn't talk about suicide, but he just sat and he listened and he responded, Hineni. And she said she owed her life to my father because of his Hineni presence. And I guess I have to share that my father was my Hineni man. He was the person I would go to in those nights of tears and heartbreak and trying to figure out which way to go in life with relationships or with careers. When I was in Israel, not knowing what to do, I would call him. And I remember one time talking on the phone for about an hour saying, "Dad, I think it's probably like $300 by now." And he said, "It doesn't matter, keep talking." He would fly me home when I needed to be with him, or he would come and stand by my side. And I have to say, the hardest thing about not having him these past 3 years is not having my Hineni man in my life, that person to go to talk to, and to tell me it's going to be all right. But you know what? Not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about him or turned to him. One of our youth here drew a picture of my father, Becky Eidelman, and she's in college now, but she drew a picture of my father, and it's an uncanny likeness of the man. And I go to my office when I'm in tears, when I don't know which way to live or to lead, and I turn to my father, and I just talk, and I start talking. And you know the amazing thing? I hear him. I don't hear words. I hear it in my heart. I hear it in my soul, because that's what Hineni men and women leave to us. That is their legacy. They may die. They may no longer physically be here, but they are never far away. They are always with us in our hearts. Let me end with the most important or beautiful expression of a Hineni woman I've ever heard of. Her name was Kay O'Bara. Kay O'Bara was made famous in Wayne Dyer's book, A Promise is a Promise. Over 30 years ago, Kay's, I think, 8-year-old daughter at the time, Eduarda O'Bara, was diagnosed with some degenerative disease that was taking her off into a coma. And before she slipped off into a coma that she'd remain there for over a quarter of a century, she said the following words, "Mommy, please promise me you'll never leave me." So Kay O'Bara said, "Of course, I promise." But here's the amazing thing. For over a quarter of a century, Kay was at her daughter's side every 2 hours, feeding her daughter every 4 hours, giving her insulin. Kay slept in a chair next to her daughter for over a quarter of a century, never sleeping more than 2 hours, never having gone to a movie, never having gone to a concert. In all of that time, she would sit there and talk to her daughter and play tapes to her daughter and just be a presence. She would braid her hair to the point where Eduarda was an older woman, and her hair was now gray, and it was still braided, and she still looked beautiful. She was tended to so lovingly that over a quarter of a century, she never had one single bed sore. She was always beautiful and spotless and tended to and loved. When asked why not just put her in a home? Why not just let someone else do it? Which may be the right response for somebody else, by the way, but that wasn't Kay's response. That wasn't what she needed. She said, I knew she would never survive living in a nursing home, and so did my husband, and I made her a promise that I would never leave her, and I won't. I know that she will one day wake up, and I will be here just like I was on the 3rd of January, 1970, and she will know that I lived up to my promise that I made when she was a little girl. After all, a promise is a promise. And Kay and Eduarda since have both died in the recent years. However, I have no doubt that they are bound up inextricably one another as part of each other's lives, as Hineni men and Hineni women always are. My friends, Kay reminds us of what my father reminds us of, what Mrs. Pant reminds us of, what your Hineni man and your Hineni woman reminds you of. That during trying times, difficult times this past year, we need Hineni men and women now more than ever. I'm reminded of a quote I shared last year, Admiral William Crowe, who said, in times like these, it is important to remember there will always be times like these. These are trying times. People are struggling and they're suffering, and now more than ever before, they are calling out to each and every one of us, Ayeka, where are you? Where are you? Where am I? Where are we in response to them in their time of need? I don't know what the year will hold. I don't know who will live and who will die and who by fire and who by stoning, but I do know this. I know how I live. I know how we can live. We can choose our response to our life. We can stand up. We can heed the call, Ayeka, where am I? By simply saying, Hineni. Let me end with this teaching. In the Talmud, they're bemoaning the fact that the great rabbis have died. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai has died, and with him true wisdom is gone, and with Rabbi Joshua, sagely guidance is gone, and Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, true humility is gone. And then, out of the shadows, a young nobody rabbi named Rabbi Joseph steps forth and says 2 words that change the conversation. What are those words? Ika ana, here I am, or in Hebrew, Hineni. Not all is lost. They were great rabbis indeed, but I am here, and each and every one of us has the potential to be Rabbi Joseph, to step forward in the life of our family, in the life of our community, in the life of this country, in the life of a stranger, and say Hineni. So on Yom Kippur, take your grandchildren or your children or your spouse by the shoulders, look them in the eye and say, Hineni, I am here, I am not going anywhere, you are not alone. Take your friend or an acquaintance or a colleague or a stranger in need and hold their hand and say, I know this is a chaotic place, I know these are uncertain times, but Ika ana, not all is lost. You are not alone. And take your Jewish community here on the North Shore, turn to the JCC and join. Call the Federation and pledge and say to them in body and mind and spirit and finances, Ika ana, I am here, Hineni. I don't know how we'll get through this, but I do know we will get through this, because that's what we owe to our Creator. That's what we owe to our Hineni men and women who were there for us. That's what we owe to ourselves. It is why we were born. It is why we are here, and it is what we are meant to do. In times like these, there will always be times like these, but in times like these, there will always rise up Gedolim, great men and great women who respond to life by saying, Hineni, here I am. So say Hineni today and the rest of the year, and we can find our way out, and we will find our way out. Hineni, I am here. You are not alone. It is time, my friends, to go home. May this be the year that we hear the call, Ayeka, where are you? But more importantly, may this be the year that we respond, Hineni, here I am, once and for all. And so with that, we continue back into our tefillah, back into our prayer, back into this opportunity to stand literally, to say, Hineni, here I am. I'm not going anywhere. I will respond to anybody and everybody in need. We continue, page 458, as the ark is opened, as we rise, Shema Kolenu and Hineni.
Tashlichenu milafanecha v'ruach kodeshecha al tikach mimenu. Tashlichenu tashlichenu leit ziknom ki chalot kochenu תעזבנו. אדוני אלוהינו, אל תרחק ממנו.
Closed, we can be seated. Continue 459, bottom of the page. Our God and God of our ancestors, do not abandon or forsake us. Do not shame us. Do not break your covenant with us. Bring us
closer to your Torah.
Teach us your commandments, show us your ways.
Incline our hearts to revere you. Purify our hearts to love you, so that we return to you sincerely and wholeheartedly.
Forgive and pardon our iniquities, as it is written in your holy scriptures.
For your own sake, O Lord, pardon my sin, though it is great. Page 460.
Eloheinu v'levoteinu selach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu, ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu.
Anu amecha ve'ata avinu, avinu.
Anu avonecha ve'ata Adonenu. Nachlatecha ve'ata garaleinu.
Anu tzomnecha ve'ata ro'einu, ro'einu.
Anu charmecha ve'ata notreinu.
Anu gvulatecha ve'ata yotzreinu, yotzreinu. Anu rayatecha ve'ata dodeinu. Anu sikulatecha ve'ata koreinu, koreinu.
Anu amecha ve'ata malkeinu.
Anu mamirecha
ve'ata
mamireinu.
Anu azefani ve'ata racham ve'chanun. Anu kasher ve'ata erech apayim. Anu malay avon ve'ata malay rachamim. Anu yamenu ketzel over ve'ata hu shnotecha lo yitamu.
Continue as we rise, page 463, as we continue the top of the page.
Anatavo lefanecha tfilateinu. Val tita mitfilateinu. Sheinanu asazefanim she'ore omafane. Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Tzadikim אנחנו ולא חטאנו, אבל אנחנו חטאנו. צדיקים אנחנו ולא חטאנו,
Anu Dofi. Continue, page 467. We have sinned against you by hardening our hearts. We have sinned against you by speaking. We have sinned against you publicly and privately. We have sinned against you by evil thoughts. We have sinned against you intentionally and unintentionally. For all these sins, O God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. Sinned against you by foolish talk.
We have sinned against you knowingly and unknowingly.
We have sinned against you by bribery.
And we have sinned against you by slander.
We have sinned against you in eating and drinking.
We have sinned against you by false pride.
For all these sins, O God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. Against you by wanton glances.
We have sinned against you by effrontery.
We have sinned against you by perverting justice.
And we have sinned against you by envy.
We have sinned against you by being stubborn.
And we have sinned against you by tale-bearing.
We have sinned against you by causeless hatred.
And we have sinned against you by confusion of values.
For all these sins, O God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
אחרי שחתם לפניך בשנאת חינם ואחרי שחתם לפניך בתימהון לבב ועל כולם אל הסליחות סלחנו וחלמנו
We continue on page 472 as the ark is opened, Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu chatanu lefanecha Avinu Malkeinu en lanu melech ela ato Avinu Malkeinu achazirenu b'teshuva shlema lefanecha Avinu Malkeinu חדש עלינו, חדש עלינו שנה טובה. אבינו מלכנו שלח רפואה, רפואה שלמה לחולי עמך. אבינו מלכנו, אבינו מלכנו, חפר עצת אויבינו. אבינו מלכנו, זכרנו בזיכרון טוב לפניך. אבינו מלכנו, אבינו מלכנו, כתבנו בספר, בספר חיים טובים. אבינו מלכנו, כתבנו בספר, בספר גאולה וישועה. אבינו מלכנו, כתבנו בספר, בספר פרנסה וכלכלה. אבינו מלכנו, כתבנו בספר, בספר זכויות. אבינו מלכנו, כתבנו בספר, בספר סליחה ומחילה.
Ark is closed. We can be seated. Continue responsibly, page 474. Avinu Malkeinu, give us the honesty to call a sin a sin. Avinu Malkeinu, give us the strength to seek forgiveness. Avinu Malkeinu, keep us from being our own worst enemies. Avinu Malkeinu, keep us from surrendering our hopes. Avinu Malkeinu, free us from needless worry and useless anxiety. Avinu Malkeinu, teach us to cherish the good we have abandoned. Avinu Malkeinu, help us to love you with all our hearts. Avinu Malkeinu, help us to serve you with all our might. Avinu Malkeinu, teach us the joy of studying Torah.
Avinu Malkeinu, give us the strength to walk in His ways.
Avinu Malkeinu, show us the way to harmony and reconciliation.
Avinu Malkeinu, may our words and deeds be to proclaim that you are truly our parent and soul.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Aleinu, Ki ein banu maasim. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, v'hoshienu.
Continue, page 476, Kaddish Shalem.
יקדל וקדש מרבו ויעמד יברך ירותי וימלך מלכותי וחייכון ויומכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו יש מרבה בתורה לעולם יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשא בריחו לעילה לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונקבתה דמירם בעלמה ואמרו אמן תתקבל צלות הוד ובאותון לכל ישראל קודם אבוהון דבי שמעיה ואמרו אמן יש למה רבה מנשמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הו יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
We rise one last time, page 478, Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל לתת גדולה ויוצר בראשית שלא עשה גילויי הרצון ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגור עלינו ככל המונם ואנחנו עולים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נותן שמיים ויסד הארץ ומשה וקרוב השמיים ממעל ושכינת זו ושכינת זו ורחם מרומים הוא אלוהינו אינו וממכנו את סעודתו וכתוב בתורתו ידעת היום והשבות וללמד כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל והארץ מתחתינו. על כן יקרא לך ככתוב בתורתך אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד ונאמן והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
And we can be seated unless we're in a period of mourning or observing a yard site. Thoughts and prayers with the families, the recent passings of Ruth Levy and Helene Goldstein, and today we have the yard sites of Leo Barron, Samuel Bloom, Joseph Friedman, Mary Garfinkel, Leon Glossband, Abraham Harris, Jacob Lipsky, Joyce Shepard, Peggy Sinrich, Nathan Strauss, and anybody else we're here to formally remember. We now turn our hearts and our prayers to them as we continue with Mourner's Kaddish on page 482 as we now remember them. Yitgadal v'yikadash shmei Rabbah v'yalma divrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayed d'chol beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kariv imru amen. Yesh shmei Rabbah mevurach le'olam lamei amaya Yipara v'yishtaba v'yipar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmeid kudusha b'richu le'ela u'le'ela minko birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran b'yama v'imru amen yehesh lama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'yalko Yisrael v'imru amen Ose shalom b'mroma, uyase shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael.
Amen.
We continue as we're seated, page 485, responsively, the psalm for the season, trust in the Lord. The Lord is my light and my help, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, whom shall I dread? One thing I ask of the Lord, for this do I yearn, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all my life, to feel the goodness of the Lord in God's sanctuary. In God's tabernacle I will bring offerings of jubilation with chanting and joyous singing. O Lord, I truly seek you. Do not hide yourself from me. Turn not in anger from your servant. Teach me your way, O Lord. Lead me on a straight path. Deliver me not to the will of my enemies.
Take courage and hope in our Lord.
And one more time, anybody who wants to recite Mourner's Kaddish, please rise at this point. 482, and join me. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah v'yalma divrach irtei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayichon v'yomechon chayedechol beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam lamei amaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalau shemei kudusha b'richu leila uleila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechmata damiran b'yama v'imru amen. Yesh lama rabba min shmaya v'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Ose shalom b'mroma uyase shalom. Before we conclude, just a couple announcements. Some things didn't make it into the very hefty and complex high holiday handouts, so we have an additional handout that says if you come tomorrow at 2:30 in between services, you'll have the honor of hearing one of our community's Hineni men and Dr. Wayne Trebin, who will be speaking at 2:30 on his journeys as saying Hineni across the world, specifically in Africa. He'll be talking about that, and at 3:15 we'll be in this, it'll all be in this space, and 3:15 we'll be in here to listen to the violin and the piano of Stephanie Quay as we just do a kind of a mindfulness meditation and sit and reflect on the nature of Yamim Norim, the High Holy Days. And then at 4 o'clock, my renewal minyan and healing service will be down in the chapel, and then a few minutes after that, the traditional mincha service will be happening in here. Lots of things happening as well. I'll make more announcements tomorrow, but check your high holiday programs. And I'd like to invite up a Hineni woman, Nancy Kaufman, head of the JCRC in Boston, doing her share. If you want to get involved with the JCRC, talk to Nancy afterwards. And she'll be reading on page 491, a Yom Kippur prayer.
On this night of atonement, we pray. Sustain us and strengthen us.
Keep us mindful
of the meaning of the prayers we utter. Make us sensitive to the purposes of the fast we have begun. Keep us hungry for truth and give us the will to seek it.
Keep us hungry for justice and give us the courage to pursue it.
Keep us hungry for peace and give us the strength to work for it.
Keep us hungry for righteousness and give us the determination to live it.
Keep us hungry for love and give us the understanding to earn it.
Keep us hungry for reconciliation and give us the wisdom to obtain it.
Keep us hungry for your forgiveness and give us the humility to ask for it.
On this night of atonement, O God,
sustain us and strengthen us.
And with that, we will conclude with Yigdal, found on page 487. 487.
Yigdal Elohai ve'yishtabach nimetzav ve'enei el metziuto.
Echad ve'nahi ke'yichudo le'olam ve'gamso la'avduto.
En lo demot haguf ve'eno guf lo naroch elav קדושתו.
אדמם לכל דבר אשר נברא, ראשון ואין ראשית לראשיתו.
הנו אדון עולם וכל נוצר, יורא גדולתו ומלכותו.
שפע נבואתו נתן האל, עד שסגולתו ותפארתו.
לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד, נאי ומביט את תמונתו.
תורת אמת נתן והמועל, היה נביאו למען ביתו.
לא יחליף האל ולא ימיר דתו, לעולמים לזולתו.
סופר ויודע סתרנו, מביט בסוף דבר בקדמתו.
גומל איש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרשע רע כרישתו.
ישלח בקץ ימים משיחנו, לפדות בחגי קץ ישועתו.
מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו, ברוך עד עד שם תהילתו.
מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו, ברוך עד עד שם תהילתו.
Conclude with the words of Rabbi Harold Schulweis, who says, the last word has not been spoken, the last sentence has not been written, the final verdict is not in. It is never too late to change my mind, my direction, to say no to the past and yes to the future, to offer remorse, to ask and give forgiveness. It is never too late to start over again, to feel again, to love again, to hope again, and I would add to be a Hineni man or woman this year. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.